Welcome back to the Gospel Sports Truth Podcast. We missed you guys last week. I had some technical difficulties, but we're back and we have a lot to go over. We have entertainment galore for you. We got to make up for what we missed on last week. So, with that being said, every week it feels as if I've had something that I just needed to get off my chest, and I can't wait to have this conversation with you, my excellent co-host, BK Wins. Holla at the people, my guy.
Hey y'all, what up?
Um, this week there is a chance. It's not often. I can start off on a good note as it pertains to this team, but I couldn't wait to talk to you today, BK, because did the Knicks inadvertently get it right twice in 1 week? Mike Brown as the head coach and Jordan Clarkson without having to give up any type of capital to get them on your team other than money, which you have plenty of that because Jalen Brunson so kindly gave back $100 million so you can put a team around. Uh, I was one that was a little upset when Thibodeau got escorted out when he did exactly what he was supposed to do. While at the same time, I'm also one that feels that Mike Brown would have been better off getting the job from the get-go. So I think they may have inadvertently got it right twice in a week. And I can't remember the last time I said that about the New Year Knicks. Your thoughts?
I think the Knicks, in my perspective, are batted one for two. I like what they did in the Clarkson move for sure, for the reasons you outlined. Um, but one of the things of my rule of thumb is if you're going to let go of a coach, you need to get somebody definitively better. And while I don't think he's a negative, right? Mike Brown has been in the league for a long time and had a lot of success, right?
Two-time champion.
But is he an upgrade over Thibodeau based on coaching? Like, I don't know. Like to me it's a lateral even move essentially.
It's only lateral if the cons don't work out better for you with this coach versus Thibodeau. The cons of Thibodeau is you weigh out your superstars. Mike Brown has a different set of cons. He was able to bring a little bit of prominence to a Sacramento Kings team that no one thought of or had anything to say about, and kind of put them back where they were supposed to be. I just kind of believe that his style of coaching and what he's going to do on the offensive side of the ball is going to align better with the players they currently have. It's also going to align a little bit better with having a deeper roster and actually using it, because if I know I'm not a starter, why would I want to go to the Knicks if Tom Thibodeau is the coach? I'm never going to play, and I know it. Like that is it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, listen, Mike Brown is a completely different coach than Tibbs, right? Like, Brown is two-time coach of the year. He did it once in Cleveland where he took a Cavs team no one expected to make to the finals, even though they got swept, but they took the Cavs to the finals. Granted, LeBron took that team to the finals, but Mike Brown was the coach of LeBron that went to the finals. So it was a terrific coaching job there. And I think he got the shaft in Sacramento. I thought he did a really good job there. And he was made the scapegoat in a situation that wasn't his doing.
And I didn't mean two-time champion. I meant two-time coach of the year. My fault.
It's the 2-week break.
Yeah, I really feel like this is going to, okay, let's say your initial thought is true and they are lateral. The fact that their coaching relevance is lateral and his player fit and free agent fit, I believe, would be a little bit better, a little bit more attractive, if you will. I just I feel like this is just a good match. Not that Thibodeau wasn't, but they could have gotten this. They could have done a whole lot worse. I'll put it that way. They could have really screwed this up, and it really felt like they were going to. So for it to be a lateral move, for them to be fortunate enough to not take a step back after taking a step that we didn't think they should have, I think they kind of lucked out in the end.
So I guess I'll approach this from two different ways, right? In one hand, I feel like if you're going to fire Tibbs, I expected a better hire than Mike Brown. However, that being said, he's a far different voice and different type of coach than Tibbs. So he certainly won't be playing his starters 75 minutes. And yes, I know you can't play more than 48. I'm aware. But he's not going to overplay his starters. He'll manage the starting better than Thibodeau did. So it's a different voice, a different way of doing things. And maybe this vision will resonate better with this roster than where Tibbs took it. Although they did go to the Eastern Conference Finals, so it's not like Tibbs failed there, right? I'm not, but maybe Mike Brown is able to, there's an opening now in the East, right? The Celtics are unloading talent. Tatum's out for the year, so who knows what Boston looks like? Orlando made some moves. Can they stay healthy? Indiana lost Miles Turner. I don't want to go through all of our segments in the first part of your thing, but the balance of power can shift. The Cavs still have to prove despite their tremendous regular season, can they perform in the playoffs? This year they underachieved. They got waxed in the second round by the Pacers, even though, as I like to point out before, they lost in 5 games, but they had double-digit leads in the second half in all but Game 4. They only truly got blown out in Game 4. The rest of the games they should have won. So, but ifs and buts are candy and nuts, right? So, I say all that to say that the Knicks with their roster and the new coaching are in a good situation where they can really make some noise. Let's see what will happen. Only time will tell.
I mean, you're right. I mean, we shall see, and we will see sooner than later because I have a feeling that we're going to be judging this move based on way too few games as soon as the season starts. But what's the good word of the week, BK? Let's kick it off.
Well, buddy, we got a lot of things going on in NBA frenzy. First, some blockbuster trades. The Suns, they finally did what they've been forecasting for quite a few months. They traded superstar KD to the Rockets in exchange for Dillon Brooks, Jalen Green, the number 10 pick in 2025, and 5 second-round picks. What do you think this means for both teams? Who do you think won this trade? And I guess I get the most important question, I think, when you make a move like this, how much better does it make the Rockets moving forward after an unprecedented 52-win season and a second seed that nobody saw coming? What do the Rockets look like moving forward?
Well, there's several things that I can glean from this move. KD went where it made the most sense for him financially and style wise, mentality wise, I'll say. He's going to a place that doesn't have state taxes, so that's always a good thing. But he doesn't have to be a leader, which he isn't one. because their coach is a great leader and he can seemingly just get the team to do what he wants them to do and play above their talent level. The great thing about this is KD is one that loves the game of basketball enough to go there and actually enjoy being coached up and watching the younger guys around him excel and grow. There are a couple of veterans on the team as well, so he won't be surrounded by um, all younger guys, but he gets to do what he likes to do, which is just go out there and play basketball. He doesn't have to be the guy that holds other people accountable. He doesn't have to be the guy that questions the judgment or decision making of other teammates that is harming their performance on the court. He doesn't have to do all that because he won't do all that because it's not in him to do all that. He just wants to play basketball, and that's what he will be able to do in Houston. Now, to be clear, Phoenix fleeced Houston in this trade. I don't feel as if Houston won the trade. They did get themselves a heck of a basketball player who probably has a good 2-3 more years left in him. Maybe 2 good years and 1 okay year, and then 1 all right, it's about done for me year, if they're lucky. But he doesn't even have that long of a contract, and it's already been stated that the 2-year extension that he added might be the okay, I'm going to retire with you contract. So I don't feel that giving up everything that they gave up for 2 years in the West, that you still aren't even the second, maybe third best team in, like you're pushing a whole bunch of chips to the middle that you don't have the team to really make it shake with. So I don't feel like that was a good decision. But I still don't feel like Phoenix has any direction. They made a good trade, but they still don't have any direction. They still don't have any leadership. They have a villain now in Dylan Brooks, but they don't have. They have less leadership than they had when KD was there, which is saying a whole lot. So that's where I'm at.
So the Suns are still a mess because their front office and ownership is a disaster, right? I think there's that. But going back to the Rockets, so with them adding KD, who's the best player on the Rockets?
KD.
And how does it go in terms of winning a title when KD is the best player on the team?
It hasn't happened.
Right. Now, I asked that question because I guess you could say when he went to the Loaded Warriors team, at that time, he might have been the best player on the Warriors, maybe.
I don't think he was the best player. I think he was in the best situation because you couldn't focus on him.
I only bring this up because you have an age superstar at the end of his career who has an injury history, who's never been able to lead the team by himself to a title. And you give up all these assets based on that. For me, I mean, look, I understand in the short term it makes the Rockets better, right? You add KD, it can't make you worse. But
agreed.
Because he's kind of one of those rare players that no matter what system and what personnel you put around him, he can fit in.
Well, he's gonna ball. He's never not been able to ball. That's never been a problem.
As long as he stays healthy, he'll be great. Mm-hmm. But you literally, and the other part is, while they gave up a ton of second-round picks, who knows what those picks turn into, right? Like, what if they're at the bottom of the round? You know, like you don't know where they're going to be picking. You don't know who they're going to take. I only say that because it's great to have, and I'm going to exaggerate for purpose of this. It's great to have 200 picks. Ask the Cleveland Browns how drafting is gone, right? You can have first-round picks. You can have a lot of picks. If you don't execute it, it doesn't matter.
That's true, for sure.
So, and with their front office, how much confidence do you have they're going to draft properly?
Well, I'll say this. Because you're inept, you're better off having more bites at the apple than hoping you get it right with just one bite. And with KD remaining on the team, You got one bite because he ain't got but 2 years left, two maybe 3 years left in him. If is the three that third year is really iffy. He's got 2 good to great years left in him. So if you aren't ready to win the championship right now, which Phoenix nor Houston is, I don't see why it would be so appealing to have that setup. I understand what Phoenix was attempting to do. I don't exactly understand what Houston is doing, because where would you put them now in the West? As currently constructed, obviously different moves can be made, but
so OKC is still the best team out West, right?
okay.
I don't think there's any question they're the best team. They're the defending champs with a loaded roster with a ton of draft capital. I think they're the team to beat. Is currently constructed, and I'm going to fill in a little news thing while I answer this.
And you don't have to put them in your specific order, just teams that are ahead of them. It doesn't have to be in the,
okay.
1 through.
I mean, I would definitely, especially now that the Nuggets added Tim Hardaway Jr., I like the Nuggets too, or at least ahead of them. I think the Nuggets are a bet. I mean, they proved last year with Jokic. They literally canned their coach before the playoffs and still came really close to outdoing OKC. You give the Nuggets any kind of weapons with Jokic there, like, you're going to be in a good place. So I like Denver ahead of them as well. The other team, which will make music to your ears, if the Lakers have a solid offseason, they can get ahead of them. Obviously, I'm not going to go through any moves that they made yet for purposes of this, but I'll just say already they've gotten better in the offseason. I have another question to ask you about them here a little bit later, but I'll just say that I would still put the Lakers ahead of them, because while the Rockets play terrific defense and KD can score, I'm not convinced against the better teams they can score enough.
I can see that.
How many teams would you put ahead of Houston?
I'm about to say, I mean, there are a couple of
and the T-Wolves might be able to get them too.
That was going to be the other team I put up there. I would put them about probably 5. I'll put them as about the 5th best team in the West. So I don't see how you climb that ladder as KD gets worse, which Father Time has already started to attack him. So I don't see the direction for either team. I don't see how it made either team better in the sense of taking you to a height that you haven't been to before based on him coming in, because you're still going to lose in the same round based on the other team. So you lose with a little bit more pizzazz, but barring injuries, you still aren't going to really get any further than you did this year. So I just don't see it. The Boston Celtics have already made a couple of trades, and they may not be done. How are you feeling about Boston right now?
Well, what's interesting is new ownerships kicked in, right? And they were way, 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 way over the apron. So they had to make some salary cap moves. So the 2 trades, first, they trade Drew Holiday to the Blazers for Anthony Simons and 2 future second-round picks. They also unloaded Porzingis to the Hawks for George Yang in a second-round pick. And, of course, the Nets get Terrence Mann in a 2025 first-round pick, number 22 overall. I think this is consistent with the Celtics realizing that they needed to, making the decision they needed to cut down on their cap, and they got rid of Holiday and Porzingis. Porzingis, while he is a really good player and talented, and helped in a need for them, he just wasn't available enough. Like there always seemed to be something going on with him. Illness, injury, well, I guess in reverse order, injury and then illness. But in either case, he missed so much time. You're paying a guy all this money to not be available. Like that doesn't make sense when you're over the cap. Holiday makes sense, given age and contract. The other guy, if I were them, that I would move is Derek White.
Yeah, agreed.
While he's a heck of a player, that's another person who's making a lot of money that I would look to move and get some pieces, parts back.
I'm hearing that he and Jaylen Brown are both available right now, and teams are calling, and it'll be which one makes the most sense based on what they were offered. But yeah, they're definitely trying to offload salary.
The other thing, so going to before I go to your Lakers, I have to admit, there's not a lot that surprises me these days.
Well, give me one. I wanted to put one thing out there about the Boston situation right quick.
Sure, hit us.
I kind of feel like they may be semi-tanking. And what I mean by that is not tanking in its truest sense, but they are understanding that they want to kill two birds with one stone. They understand that Tatum won't be right next year. And it'll be year after next when he'll be hopefully back to his normal self. And that's when they can, quote unquote, kind of push the chips back to the middle of the table again if their standing in the Eastern Conference is still the same. But I believe that they're trying to get the money right while also understanding that where they see themselves as a team won't happen without who they deem as being their centerpiece. Because even though he just had that injury, they aren't even having a thought process of what it would look like to get rid of him. But White and Brown are already on the trade block, just waiting to see if anyone has a good enough offer. So,
and what's interesting, going back to that real quick, though, Zay, is going back to the power balance of the East, right? The Pacers made it to the Eastern Conference Finals and then the NBA Finals. Halliburton's out for the year. They lost Miles Turner to the Bucks, which going into that story real quick, they literally waived Damian Lillard. I couldn't believe that they did that, especially with all the money and everything else related to that. I know I read a bunch of things online that called that move reckless. I'll just say it was surprising. But getting Miles Turner to a 4-year deal will definitely help. It made them better. It showed Giannis they wanted to add a good player. It also weakened the Pacers because the Pacers lost Turner. Now they don't have Turner because of this. They already don't have Halliburton because of his season-ending Achilles injury. So, the Pacers have regressed. Boston's losing talent. It is going to open up things in the East, which should, I guess, will put even more pressure on Mike Brown at the Knicks. But I do think the Celtics are unloading pieces, parts. What's interesting to me is, and I know that you're going to probably shake your head at me for this, but if both players were healthy, I don't know who I would consider offloading first, Tatum or Brown.
Whichever one you can get the most for.
That's kind of how I feel about it, right? It's not like I'm in love with Tatum so much that he's untradeable. Well, I mean, he is right now because he's out for the year. Like, what are you going to get for a guy who's out, right? And Brown just had off-season surgery. So, it's not like he's a healthy candidate either right now. So
that might be why they haven't gotten the offer that they thought they were going to get for him to move on. So,
but yeah, it'll be interesting. So I've been dying to ask you all week. There is lots to talk about in Hollywood. Obviously, LeBron opted in his player option, $52.6 million on the books. We also know that the Lakers signed DeAndre Ayton to a 2-year deal, which will help them in the middle. There's also been a lot of rumors about LeBron for the first time only opting into a 1-year deal, nothing promised afterwards, and that he's actually on the trading block. So, what do you think next year looks like? There's new ownership. LeBron's old. Newsflash, he's old. He's played great, but he's old. So the question is from your perspective, what does next year look like for them in terms of, what does it look like?
Well, we're already turning the page. The Lakers have their new superstar. To be clear, the Lakers are Luka Doncic. It's his team. However, what the Lakers can't have is egg on their face twice, right? This actually works out for all parties involved. The thought process, if you're LeBron James, is if I choose to retire next year or if I don't, whatever I want to do and wherever I want to do it, I want to have the choice. That just makes sense. The thought for the Lakers front office is, well, although LeBron is playing at a very high level, how much money and how much talent do we want to ward off by him still being here? Because there are some guys that would love to play with Luka if LeBron wasn't there. Like you I'm not going to be third fiddle. I'd be okay being Luka's, Robin in some games and him being mine in others. But I'm not about to be the third guy on that team with an all-time guy. Like that just, most players' egos won't allow that to happen unless it was a Damian Lillard type of a situation where you have another aging superstar that you would give another short-term contract to, but another shooter, you already got your center and you have a couple of 3-and-D guys, so you're well on your way to building the type of team that we thought we had with the guys that were already there and without having to give up any additional capital. But the main thing that I'm looking at as far as the LeBron situation is concerned is it's a non-conversation. And the reason it's a non-conversation is because he has a no trade clause. So the only way LeBron goes anywhere is if LeBron wants to go somewhere. So I just don't. You kick the tires on a lot of different situations, players and organizations alike. But it would just have to be a fit made in heaven. Like it would have to be somewhere he wants to be, while at the same time they want him and have enough cap room to pay him and have enough pieces to match the salary that they're going to sit. Like it's just a lot of moving pieces. I'll give you one team that could probably make it happen if they really wanted it to. And I don't think anyone could be mad at LeBron. I don't think anyone can be mad at the Lakers. And everyone would love to see the Golden State Warriors play basketball with the two guys that everyone loves to watch the most. That's not an opinion. That's just what the stats say. Steph Curry and LeBron are still bringing the most eyeballs, which is why they say we don't have a replacement for them yet, because there isn't a young superstar who really brings the fans, and more so than the fans, the people that aren't fans that just will watch a game because that particular person is in it. We don't have that person yet. They're trying to hype up Ant-Man to be that guy, but he's just not quite there yet. Their guys talent-wise that are there, but their personalities don't line up. Tatum to me is in the same vein as the Tim Duncan. A little bit more a little bit less introverted, but not too much more outgoing. So things have to kind of come together, and that would be a way that I could see the NBA really putting some butts in the seats, some eyeballs on a whole lot of games, and then maybe you get like a Kaminga, a Draymond Green, and whatever you got to do to make the salaries work. But if I'm the Lakers, as long as they're players that are startable, I'd be okay with it because I know I only had 1 year left with LeBron anyway. Um, and that's how I would look at it as a front office and as a fan. If I can get multiple young pieces that I don't feel like we're losing out on, um, that's really the only place that I can see him wanting to go. I don't see him leaving California. He's kind of set up there now. And obviously, I know he has the means to get to wherever he wants to get to, but I don't know if he wants to quote unquote leave home base, if you will.
I can see that for sure. Well, I wanted to ask you this, and I know it got delayed a week, but by now everyone knows the Thunder completed their storybook season by winning the NBA title. Star SGA was named Finals MVP. No surprise, I think, to either of those. But what I really wanted to talk to you about was, well, the Thunder deserve all the credit for winning. The Pacers are left with the worst thing in sports, which is what if after the Halliburton Achilles injury? You know, he left very, very early in game 5, a game that they lost. And then he left very early in game 7, which would turned out to be the Achilles after he knocked down 3 threes and had 9 early first quarter points. You lose a 7-game series where arguably your best player essentially missed 2 full games. If you're the Pacers, how do you feel about this?
You feel horrible. You feel like the carriage turned back into a pumpkin at the most inopportune time. Um, not only will you not have Halliburton for most of next year, possibly all of next year, depending on how far you get, likely all of next year. Um, you add to that you lose Miles Turner, which you mentioned earlier, and I don't see free agents clamoring to go to the Pacers. So how are you going to get back to where you were last year with losing 2 phenomenal players that you aren't going to be able to replace because there are no stars out there unless maybe Damian Lillard feels like he should go there. He's better off in a small market and he can kind of be the Halliburton substitute. And then when Halliburton gets back, to have both of them in clutch moments, maybe the Pacers are just a center away from being back to where they were. Maybe that's the thought, but I don't know. So many things have to go their way. And normally that doesn't happen in small markets where everything goes your way that you want to for you to be able to maintain after that type of a blow.
Yeah, I think if I were to look into my NBA crystal ball, I would say the Pacers are going to look back and really, really lament and regret not closing the deal, because I just don't foresee, barring some kind of crazy moves, I just don't see how they're going to recover from, again, Halliburton's out for the year. They lose Miles Turner. Those are 2 of their 3 best players, with Siakam being the other option.
Yeah.
And as good as Siakam was this year for them and has really turned into a much-needed vocal leader for them, even in a wide-open East for the most part, I just don't see how they're going to replicate that. But I guess to ask you one more, I take it one step further. I know you and I don't like the what if games, but I'm going to ask because I think it's an important question. Do you feel the Pacers would have won this title had Halliburton been healthy for all 7 games?
BK, I'm smiling because when you finished your thought, I was actually going to go there next. So we are in lockstep, brother. This is the saddest part about it. I really honestly believe they could have pulled it off in game 7 if Halliburton didn't get hurt. I really feel like he was on his way to having one of those games that was going to put him in the pantheon of those guys. Whoever you think of when we talk about the NBA and we're talking about those guys, he would have been one of those guys. He would have been an absolute legend in that state. Just matter of fact, getting them to where he did and the way he got them there makes him a legend in that state forever. But I really feel like they could have won that game 7, BK. I do. Like Halliburton was ready. He was coming. And when he showed up, it was going to make everybody else that showed up that much better. And I just really feel like they would have been dragging OKC out into those deep waters, and they would have ended up coming in clutch like they have all off season for the last 2 years for the most part. So, but if it was a fifth, we'd all be drunk. So that's not really relevant at this point. But yeah, I was going to bring up the exact same thing.
Well, what do you have for us next?
Well, so you spoke about the Nuggets signing Tim Hardaway. Do they still need to make a couple of more moves, or is that good enough to, barring injury, is that good enough to put them where they need to be able to compete again in the West?
I feel like they were close last year, taking the Thunder to 7, right? So adding Hardaway will definitely help. I would like to see him get one more player, and I think that would really, really solidify their chances. So I would say good step, one more piece part needed, and I think they'll be in business.
Well, sir, it is now time for our truth and nothing but the truth. What we got up first, BK?
So I got to tell you, Zabe, I saw this first thing and I immediately was pissed. So should the NCAA expand the men's and women's basketball tournament? For a little historical reference, back in 1985, they expanded to 64 teams. And in 2011, they added 4 more to get to 68. How do you feel about them expanding the field?
Just let everybody in. Matter of fact, wait until the NIT tournament is over and let the NIT tournament winner be the last whatever number you picked to be in, and then the 16s don't matter anymore. They'll just be guys that could have been on a bubble if the bubble wasn't moved 50 yards down the road. So at this point, I for basketball, BK, I got to be honest with you. I know I sound like the old man, get off my lawn, leave it like it was back in the day, but that's actually not what I'm saying. As it pertains to the basketball tournament, I really don't care who you let in, because at the end of the day, the worst thing that can happen is they make the tournament more exciting by winning, by beating someone that they weren't supposed to, and then we're all just talking about our brackets. Because let's just be honest, BK, college basketball is nowhere near as popular as it used to be, which is directly related to why the NBA is nowhere near as popular as it used to be, because we used to have a set of superstars and guys that we knew that were coming in that should be next up. And at this point, we don't know about the guys that are next up, so we're still hanging on to yesteryear. But I don't care. Put 100 teams in, whatever. You can put the school for the blind in. You can put the rec league winner championship with the YMCA, whatever you want to do out there at this point, because I mean it's obvious you just want more games because more games is going to be more revenue and yada 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 on down the line. Unlike most other sports, it doesn't matter how many games they play. It's basketball. It's not as grueling on you as football is, and you won't have nearly the disastrous results as far as injury is concerned, because no matter how many teams you add, there still won't be but so many additional games that each team in the tournament would have to play. So whatever. I mean, I'm just like, look, it's on during the time where there's no football. So whatever, like whatever, any sport that you can make interesting in March and in April outside of the NBA, I would love to have more to talk about, more to watch. So whatever. Hell, make it 3 weeks long. Make it a month-long tournament if you want to. Whatever. That's where I'm at.
This is absolutely one of the dumbest ideas I've heard. Like, so this is my issue with this. We expanded to 64, right? And I'm just going to call it what it is. So teams that were on the bubble and finished 65, 66, bitched and whined and cried and moaned. So we had to beg and moan and let 4 more mediocre teams in. So now we have 68 teams in. To your point, let's just have 100 teams in but you know what's going to happen? Team 101 and 102 are going to bitch and whine that they didn't get in. Can we please stop? Just have 64 and leave it how it is. Look, if it'd be different if we were arguing about we're expanding this because it's going to create more interest and we're going to get better games and we're preventing better teams from making it. Okay, like I'm okay with expanding the college football playoff. It's going to make it more exciting. You're going to get better teams and hopefully better games. So it makes sense to do that. In basketball, let's be real. If you're not in the top 16 teams when you head into the tournament, the odds of you doing anything in the tournament aren't much anyway, other than winning a game or two, which makes it exciting because the first 2 rounds are great. But then at the end of the day, by the Sweet 16, you see a bunch of chalk for the most part. So you're letting all these mediocre teams in for what? So that they maybe win a game?
Because their entire fan base is going to spend money. That's like 10 more schools who are all spending money to get to some destination, and 10 more cities making money, and 10 more like it's all about like you got to look at it this way. If you bring in more teams, you need more stadiums. That means you need more cities. That means more people are making these bids for what it all comes down to money. And it's not just the money that goes to the schools that are playing or to the NCAA. It's literally like the towns that will have bars packed, hotels packed, restaurants packed. That one weekend may make their quarter or 6 months of what they would normally make. And that the opportunity to do that is what is created by adding more teams, more so than it affecting basketball at all.
Well, you know what? You know what you can do with teams 68 through 100? You can start a new tournament called the NBC tournament, the nothing but crap. Because that's what that tournament would be. Yes, you're right. In fairness, you're right. Everything resolves around money. So I don't disagree.
But my question is, if you keep expanding this tournament, like I don't know how many people pay that much attention to the NIT tournament anyway.
Nobody.
But who are you gonna leave for them at this point? Do you just well? Okay, this is what you do. I'm a solutions oriented guy, and this is what we do.
I can't
We
wait.
buy out the NIT tournament. We had all of those teams, and then you have the number of teams that you really want in the tournament, and you don't have another tournament to quasi compete with, getting any teams with any type of talent at all that could possibly win anything. Because that's where we're heading eventually anyway. Let's just kill a few birds with one stone and let's just do that.
This whole thing makes me sad.
What we got next?
I need a snack. I need a vacation. I need something because this is just
depressing
crap. So, another one of my favorite subjects today. It feels like it's self-punishment week. Has technology made sports less exciting to watch?
I had to think about this question a few different ways. And I had to truly take inventory of my sports life, if you will. And the thing that I came up with was this. It is actually less exciting. Okay. You remember WCW back in the day, BK?
Wrestling? I do. I sure do.
So that was when it was more wrestling and less drama and acting and all that kind of good stuff. But I bring that up to say sometimes the referees were part of the show, and sometimes their mistake, even though it made the onlookers irate, it actually brought more to the show. And that's what we've taken away to a certain extent with all of the technology. And I know you're a proponent of, hey, let's get it right. And I'm cool with that. But when getting it right means taking 3 minutes out of a game that already had 5,000 commercials, I'm namely speaking to the NFL with that particular, well, not NBA too. I mean, but it's just sometimes what makes it less exciting is the use of the actual technology. I'm glad we got it right, but I'm not even going to be able to finish watching this game tonight because it's 45 minutes longer than what it should have been because we trying to get everything right. Like sometimes getting it wrong is a part of the game, but I do understand that now in the wonderful world of Vegas and everyone being able to bet on everything pretty much, that was the case in yesteryear. You do want your customers to not feel jobbed at the end of every game because of what the referees did or didn't do. And it's like, I feel like you guys are conspiring against me because football is a game of inches. And in many cases, a lot of these basketball games come down to a couple of points. A ton of other sports come down to either a point or two or a half a second or two. So you at least have to make it seem like you want to get it right, even if you don't care. Even if the referees are still playing the role of the villain, but just in more subtle ways. I just feel like we still talk about, for example, Dez Bryant and that being a touchdown to this day. Like, technology clearly showed what it was. If he had scored a touchdown, we wouldn't be talking about that to this day. You take that out, as bad as it hurts in the moment, it's what we remember most later on. So, like the tuck rule, which my team benefited from. But if we it's a give and take with sports. Sometimes the pain of it all is what really draws you in. even though it sucks at the time. Like, I don't know. That's just kind of where my head is.
Yeah, so for me, yes, obviously, we all know how I feel about this by now, which is if you have the technology to get it right, you should use the technology and get it right. My pet peeve is we have the technology and still don't get it right. So at that point, then why do we have technology when we're not getting it right?
Sure.
So, that's what they need to do is invest in a system in all sports where they're essentially copying tennis and using Hawkeye because Hawkeye doesn't miss the calls. And we don't have to spend 75 years waiting for the call to may or may not be right. The other thing about it is, one of the things kind of backing a little bit off of what I just said, which is, or varying off that course, there's something to be said about the olden days about sports where, referees, particularly in football or basketball or baseball, would miss calls and you still have to overcome that and win the game. Like that's part of the game. Like there's a human element to the game that I think
Agreed.
matters. But the other part of it is going back to the Des Bryant thing, like that's one of the rules that bothers me to death. Like we've so nitpicked what a catch is. We all know what a catch is. It's very obvious what a catch and what not a catch is. I don't need some blown out, detailed War and Peace breakdown of what a catch is. You know
Agreed.
it when you see it, except for if you're, Des Bryant and you get screwed. But couldn't happen to a worse team, by the way. But
Ah,
but nevertheless, always it's never a bad day, Zay, to take a shot at the Cowboys.
no
But
such thing. Absolutely.
but
Last topic. What do we got?
so last topic. Do fans still care about the NFL, NBA, MLB, and NHL drafts?
By and large, I'd have to say no. By and large, I'd have to say the average fan don't even know most of these kids that are being drafted. And again, that goes back to a statement that I made previously where people aren't as vested in college sports other than football, which is why the NFL draft is still the one that draws as many fans and eyeballs as most of these other sports actual games draw, because we actually know the guys that played college football. They were highlighted. We've seen their faces. We've heard their names a ton of times. We know the storylines. We know the tight losses, the guys that came out of nowhere. We follow the storylines. So it's a part of the story about where they get drafted, when they get drafted, why they got drafted when they did or didn't get drafted when they were supposed to. Like, we actually care about all that. With these other sports, most people don't know enough about these young men to know where they should have been drafted if they weren't drafted in the right spot. Don't know enough about the sport in general on the college level to know what translates to the pro level. Because that's another thing. Like, you got some guys that are stupendous on the college level in some sports that a person that knows what they're looking at understands that that won't work over there. So I just kind of I feel like really only the NFL. Like, honestly, and I'm gonna tell you how bad it is. With the NFL, you have social media talking for 2 or 3 days. You have, in your personal chats as you're looking at who your teams are drafting, all that kind of good stuff. Everyone's paying attention. People care about Mr. Irrelevant, which is the very last person drafted in the 7th round in the NFL. The NBA can't make us sit through 2 rounds because we legit don't know anybody in the second round unless it was Bronny James. Outside of that, no one knows anybody drafted in the second round, by and large. Unless it was a guy that should have went in the first round but got injured or got in trouble or something like that. NHL and MLB, most of us are turning off the notifications on our phone to ensure that Bleacher Report does not disturb us during those drafts. So that's about how popular those are. So yeah, that's where I am as it pertains to the draft and those sports.
Yeah, I'll just be real quick, right? Like you said, everything goes through football. Football, the ratings have exponentially increased. Basketball, the ratings have dropped dramatically. Baseball, they've dropped off a cliff. NHL is even worse. So nobody watches the NHL draft, the MLB draft. And to be honest, no one really cares about the NBA draft unless there's some, generational talent that's going to be coming in that draft. A Jordan, a LeBron, somebody of that ilk. If it's not somebody super great, then they don't really care about that either. So, no one, no offense, no one was really jumping out of their seat to go see Cooper Flag. As great as he was at Duke, people don't care. And that's the truth.
It is now time for our top 5 all time of something. And this week, NBA draft bust. I was interested to see where this one was going to go because I knew we would have a couple of people that kind of crossed because some guys just have to be on a list of this type. But I was more interested to see where we would rank these guys. And there are a couple of guys, there's one guy. Our number 5s are the only 2 differences, I believe, but the rankings are drastically different. So this will be fun. Who you got at number 5?
Michael Olowokandi. Were you surprised to see his name on my list?
I was actually. But I can see why. Like, yeah, definitely, yeah. But I don't believe he has my number 5 beat. And that is Hashim Thabit, the number 2 overall pick in 2009 from Memphis, who averaged a whopping 2.2 points. And this is what makes this one hurt. A couple of notable players drafted after him: James Harden, Steph Curry, DeMar DeRozan.
Yeah, they did okay.
Yeah. So, yeah. That's where we were with that. Number 4 for you is who?
Darko Milicic. No one can forget the Pistons taking him, and he just from day one looked like a lost, overwhelmed puppy. That was him. That was just, definitely a bust.
100% agree with you. Number 4 for me is actually a Buckeye, Greg Oden, drafted number 1 in 2007. Immense talent, but injury prone. Only played 105 games in his career.
When he was drafted, was he 22 or 42? Because he looks like he was
age, or like he looked like he had 3 kids when he was 13. So like, just putting that out there. But the thing about the reason why he isn't higher on my list is because when he played ball, Like, this was with like Hashim Thabit, with a couple of the other guys that are actually going to be on my list that are in front of him. They didn't have the injury issues that he had. So like he just there was nothing he can do. There was nothing he can do. I mean, it wasn't on him. Number 3, who you got?
Oh, I love saying this one. Kwame Brown.
We got the same guy for number 3. Interesting.
Ugh, what a mess.
Drafted number 1 overall in 2001 by the Wizards. The first high schooler drafted number 1 overall. 12-year mediocre career. Yeah.
Who you got at
Interesting
number 2?
character, though. Pretty good online content if you're interested in rants and nothing but rants. He's pretty interesting to listen to sometimes. He kind of gets out there a little bit, so buyer beware. But yeah, both had number 3 the same, Kwame Brown. Who is your number 2?
Anthony Bennett.
I actually have him as my number 1. Anthony Bennett, drafted number 1 in 2013 by the Cavs, averaged a whopping 4.4 points, 4 years, the dumbest pick then and now. I was living in Ohio when that pick was made. No, actually, I had just moved from Ohio, so I was really paying attention to what the Cavs are doing, because if you wanted to watch basketball, their games are always going to be televised. And it didn't make sense then, and I'm still horrified by how far they set that team back with that pick.
You're not lying.
My number 2, since I already told you my number 1, was actually Darko Milicic, who again was drafted number 2 in 2003. He was a bench player for most of his career. Here was the thing that makes you cringe even more about his situation. Carmelo Anthony, Chris Bosh, and D Wade were all drafted after Darko Milicic. So some of these guys, for me, what made them make my list was the guys that we look at. Obviously, hindsight is 2020, but some of us was like, "Whoa, what are you doing?" back then. Like picking Darko over Carmelo Anthony was bananas. I didn't know D Wade was going to end up being where he turned into. Didn't know Chris Bosh was going to end up being where he turned into. But not taking Carmelo Anthony was just bananas, even back then.
The 2 that really stuck out to me on this list, my number 1 is Greg Oden, which I know you referenced earlier. Oden was my number 1. But, the 2 that really were blatant misses were Anthony Bennett and Darko Milicic. Like those 2, when you look at this list of those 5, those 2 are exactly what you're doing now, just complete head scratchers. Like that's like immediate. I remember when the Cavs took Bennett, and people were immediately pissed. Like most people are like, "Well, let's see how it goes." We may not like it. Like the reaction was people were pissed.
Yeah,
and they weren't wrong
at all. Well, BK,
I don't think that Anthony Bennett would be a starter in the Walmart league.
It would depend which city. And it would depend on the city. It depends on. They got some ballers out there. You'd be surprised. One of the requirements for some of those jobs is that has a lot to do with height. Sometimes, makes the job a little easy. You'd be surprised who's working out there. That injury away from going pro, you'd be surprised who's out there. BK, my guy, it is time for you to either make us some money or save us from ourselves. What is it going to be this week, my guy?
This week we're going to save you from yourselves. No picks this week. Couple things to be mindful of in the tennis world. Wimbledon going on, of course, the championships. The 2 top-seeded men are still available, Sinner and Alcaraz. Alcaraz, the 2-time defending champion. To me, he's the best player.
I was about to say, isn't he kind of
the... he had a little French Open comeback championship hangover in the first round where he had to escape a very, very tough first-round match where it went 5. Since then, he's been on cruise control. Sinner, not the number one player, but not as great on grass. Djokovic still around. Remember, he made a run to the finals fresh off of knee surgery last year. But I think Alcaraz is the pick to win. In the women's side, depending on value, again, not a best bet, just conversation piece to point in the right direction. The favorite to win Wimbledon was the French Open runner-up, Aryna Sabalenka. 4 of the top 5 women are out of Wimbledon early before the end of round 2, which has really opened it up for Sabalenka, who's the only remaining top 5 player left. The second player I like is the grass fits her game perfectly, which is Rybakina. She's also been a couple times the best bet on the program. Friend of my pocket is thankful because of her success. But that would be the second one. By the way, those 2 ladies have the 2 best odds to win Wimbledon. So I would, if you're looking to make a futures bet here, I would dial in on Alcaraz. I would also place it on Sabalenka, but I would hedge my bet as well and also make a play on Rybakina as well. No official plays. Take the week off. Celebrate the Thunder winning the title. Celebrate the Panthers winning the cup. Celebrate SGA winning the MVP. And let's not talk about my miss on Coastal, who failed to score even a run in game 1. By the way, I do need to clean up something about that best bet because it was pointed out to me. The value of that bet was in the fact that they were getting great value as an underdog and on a long winning streak. From a record and a ranking standpoint, they were not the better team. That was something that I mentioned a couple weeks ago. So to be clear, LSU was the better team heading into this based on talent and ranking. However, Coastal was a great play and a value play because of what you were getting to bet them.
And as you celebrate all those things that BK brought up, I want you to also make sure that you have a happy 4th of July. Be safe out there. Stay hydrated. Make sure if you're using fireworks, you have a water hose nearby. Those things can get away from you real quick, especially if you're in a dry area. But that pretty much wraps it up for us for this week. And remember, our friends and congregation, always tell the truth.
And nothing but the truth. And stay thirsty, my friends.
We out.
Later, y'all.